And today's episode of the Rants of Izzo Show is brought to you by Spreely.com. Check out all the things that are able to speak freely. Like on the platform, we could say that in America, we're trying to bring the trend back of men wearing tiny little mustaches. But you can't say that on other little platforms, so it is what it is. Go check out Spreely.com so you can look at other or consume other content like the Burn Pit Podcast, Report and Opine with Eric Butler, Shannon Joy's Show, Pete Santilli, Evening Rants, and a lot more. There's also a free speech platform there. Go there, check it out, support all the content that we all do. Get your news, media, all the stuff that the mainstream media wants to brainwash you. You're not going to see it there. Speak freely. All right, let's have a show.
Prepare yourself.
The opinions of the host and guests on the show are exclusively just that, opinions. That means that they shouldn't be the cause of your state of being offended. Why does everybody get so butthurt?
Okay, let's go. Ready, go!
Sit down, shut up, and pay attention.
Damn!
This is the Rants of Izzo Show with your host, Dominic Izzo, from porn to politics. We touch every third rail we can find. You might want to put your headphones on so your mom can't hear this. It's been called the most entertaining 60 minutes on the internet, and it starts now. Let's do this.
Good afternoon. Another freezing cold day with snow out here in Chicago. It is what it is. I do not know if mass deportation started last night. Hope to God they did. We will look at the weekend's numbers of shooting, which we didn't even take a look at on Monday. Should have. And we'll kind of get some updates on that. And, we'll have a show today. Happy Wednesday. Year of our Lord, 2025. And it's January 2022. Burn Pit Podcast gentlemen are here today. How are you, mates? What's going on? How's things?
Doing well, Dominic. Thanks for waiting on us to get in the Zoom. I apologize about the delay.
I don't mind. It's not your problem. It's just the PHAGGOTs on the other end that can't get their stuff together. That's it. That's how we're gonna wind up doing that one. We got to start today off with some stuff. There's a whole lot I want to talk about. MLK, and the world that we were raised. I think he was because the Martin Luther King Day was the other day. I want to talk about this Stargate thing that is going to be pretty damn interesting. More. I want to say this. We do make a big theme, especially when you guys are on, because you guys are history buffs and constitutional experts. I mean, Matty Wack, you put a quarter in him and you ask him what's line 34 of the Declaration of Independence, and he's going to be able to recite it to you, which is a shame that we all can't. I sent you guys a documentary I saw the other day because I started to watch things like Europa, The Final Battle. I wanted to have a dual bias for arguments when people approach me. Like I had an experience with family and you lost me when you're saying it's not 6 million. And I'm going, listen, I'm just creating the conversation. So I want to be educated on this. And I feel better about taking a position of what would be called anti-Semitism, which is anything that's criticism of the people on the other side of the aisle there. And I watched this documentary on how the Jews are not God's chosen people. And Scott, I don't know if you have already said this or I just need to hear from another perspective, but a Jew is an extremely hijacked, generic term for a group of people that aren't associated with the biblical Jews of what we grew up with. I watched this documentary talk about the branches of the 12 tribes, and one was of Judah, and then that got kind of like watered down from marrying outside tribes that they weren't allowed to marry. And then the Jews that we think today, they're kind of hijacking the Jews that were on Christ's time, and they're not those Jews. And then it kind of makes more sense that if you're going to vilify, which is what we do to call out their behavior, a group of people who are acting seemingly in some nefarious usurping of American government and everything else, I think it's a good place to kind of encourage people to do what you've done and get a little bit more biblically trained so we know what we're talking about and not just sound like we're shitting all over a group of God's people. I don't know if anything I said makes sense or if you have any kind of knowledge on that.
Yeah, no, these are all great questions to ask. And Matt's also well versed in this topic because of the majority of the citizens of Israel when it comes to Jewish ethnicity. The majority of Jews living in Israel are Ashkenazi Jews. Now, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong here at any time, but Ashkenazi Jews would be those that came to Israel post-World War II that were European.
Yeah, because Israel did not exist. You have to remember, Israel didn't even exist as a country until 1948. Now, prior to that, there wasn't really any Jews that lived in that area. Okay, it was called Palestine. Now, post-World War I, you had the Balfour Declaration, which gave that territory that the British took from the Turks, because the Turks were associated with the Germans, allied with the Germans in World War I. They lost. They took that land from Turkey, the Palestine area, they controlled it, and said this is going to be a homeland settlement under British control for the Jewish people to migrate to now. They made the Balfour Declaration, which was Lord Balfour and Lord Rothschild made an agreement to get America into the war. We're going to get America to come in and save the day because you guys are losing against Germany. But in the end, when you win, we want Palestine as a settlement for the Jewish people. Then post-World War II, it became an actual country.
But when we talk about for Christians, and we're talking about God's chosen, which Christians seem to worship this group of people because they associate modern-day Israel with Israel of the Bible, which Matt will say, well, it's the same evil that we're dealing with when you look at the Old Testament and you look at Israel. And, of course, in Deuteronomy, when it talks about all the things that Israel can do or Israelites can do to Gentiles, the list goes on in the Deuteronomy. And Deuteronomy is a version of Jewish supremacy, except they're using the word Israelite. So the question then becomes, is it about DNA? Because when we're talking about DNA and we're talking about the flesh, the New Testament's very clear that the flesh profits nothing. That It's not about physical DNA. That it's physical. It's not about physical DNA. This is a spiritual seed. However, these Christians will cling on to these Old Testament verses they're telling them to bless Israel, and they think it's their duty to. And again, they associate modern day Israel with Israel of the Bible, which there's a confusion there. Matt thinks there's no confusion, which I like his perspective on that. There is a confusion there in the church. There is a confusion there in the church because you have a group of people that live in a foreign country that we've been told our entire life that they're our greatest ally. However, they don't share any of our values. I'm talking Christians. They don't share Christian values. Okay, their religion, Judaism, which is based off of the Torah, which
Old Testament,
which is the Old Testament, which is basically the first 5 books of the Bible, which Moses is credited with writing, even though some historians and theologians think it was a scribe that wrote the Torah. But then you have the Talmud, and the Talmud is rabbis' interpretation of the Torah, and that was written somewhere in the 600 AD, roughly, and the Talmud, when rabbis are breaking down the religion of Judaism, they believe that there's 6 genders. They believe that Jesus was not the Son of God. They don't believe in any divinity. They don't believe in any divinity of Mary, for the Catholics out there listening or watching. They thought Mary was a whore. They thought Jesus was the son of Mary based off of her sleeping with a Roman centurion, and that Jesus right now is boiling in a vat of human feces. Again, you can go to a book called Jesus in the Talmud, written by Peter Schaeffer. He was a professor of Jewish studies at the University of Princeton. He wrote all about this. It's all in there. And then you have other books like the Zohar and the Kabbalah that
mysticism.
It talks about, it's almost like magic that are talking about, but they
accuse Christ of being a magician, but in black magic.
Yes. So, but they believe in this karmic guilt, And what alleviates them of this karmic guilt, and I'm kind of getting off topic here, is their ability to show you what they're going to do before they do it. And if you're not smart enough or keen enough to hone in on their plans and you didn't stop them, then it's on you.
Well, that's the whole premise behind, that was the whole premise behind like Satanism and how Satan has to show you his plans. So they're linked up. What I liked was there is a guilt, right? And it's, and it, call it the brainwash guilt I've had my entire life. You can't criticize these people and oh my God, and blah, blah. But it turns out it's like anything else. It's like generalizing Italy. Well, you get people from Italy and they're from Naples. They're going to be like, they're not going to be the same as the Calabrians and then the Sicilians and all this. It's the same thing. I found it in this documentary. I found 3 verses that back up what I've been advocating, which is I don't think that I'm not going to worship a place that has a wall, a brick wall. That makes zero sense to me. And I've always said, wait, I thought that as Christians, how do we believe if we accept Christ and we take that baptism and we acknowledge we are blood-bought sons and daughters of God, and now we're in the family, we're grafted in according to Paul. If that's the case, then I am just as much chosen as the Jews say they are. 3 biblical verses that kind of back that up. The first one I found was Romans, and you've talked about this before. To dumb it down, it says, God chose Jacob over Esau unconditionally, Romans 9:11. Those are 2 tribes that they were talking about in this documentary, how Esau was kind of, I don't want to use the word polluted for being ignorant, but that's what the Jews are based off of, is that line of Esau. And you have talked about that before. What's the difference between those 2?
So with Esau, his descendants are those that went into Europe. That's what historians and theologians believe. And rabbis today believe Europe to be Edom, the descendants of Esau. Esau, it always perplexed me, because here's the thing about that story, Dominic. When you read about Isaac, who is the son of Abraham, who Abraham was willing to sacrifice. If we remember this, God told him to put on a son. That's all foreshadowing. There's foreshadowing. Christians believe in the foreshadowing of the Old Testament and the image that's painted in the Old Testament of Christ, whether it's the sacrificing the unblemished lamb and putting the blood over the door. That's foreshadowing. That's, of course, in the Exodus of Egypt, the Israelites coming out of Egypt. The blood of the lamb, Agnus Dei is Lamb of God. That's Latin, Lamb of God, Agnus Dei. There's a song out there called Agnus Dei by Michael W. Smith. He's a famous Christian singer. But here, when you talk about Isaac, the son of Abraham, having 2 sons, Isaac had 2 sons. One was Esau and one was Jacob. And Jacob got the blessing from Isaac. Now, how did he obtain that blessing? Jacob and his mother deceived Isaac to obtain the blessing. And that I always question why. If you know the story, Esau comes into his father, Isaac, who's blind at the time. And Isaac says, I'll give you the blessing. Just go out and kill and make me some food, make me some stew. Come back, and I'll give you your blessing. So Esau goes out. Now, here, Isaac's wife, Jacob's mother, hears this, and she, gets this plan together with Jacob. Hey, we're going to give your father this food. You're going to go in, deepen your voice, make it sound more like Esau. We're going to put this kind of bear skin over your forearm, and you're going to, when he asks to feel you because he's blind, he'll feel the fur, and he'll know it's you, and he'll give you a blessing. So this is by deception here that they've got the blessing. But Christians will say, for whatever reason, that God loved Jacob and hated Esau. That's always brought up, and it's brought up in the New Testament too. And when you break down that interaction in the Bible, again, Jacob received this blessing through deception. And then the story there, which was just eloquently kind of broken down to us recently, was that the moral of the story there was that Esau's still the bad guy, even though he got mad that his brother stole his birthright. And then theologians will come back and say, well, Esau was willing to give up his birthright for some food earlier on in the story. Like, he was willing to give his birthright up to Jacob. And there's all this back and forth there. But when it comes to, and this is circling back around to the original question, I don't think I answered it, Dominic, was when it talks about DNA and all the mixing of different tribes, and there's 12 tribes of Israel based off of the 12 sons of Jacob. You know, there's Dan, Zebulun, Levi, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of Judah, and of course, Joseph in the coat of many colors. He was the youngest son that was also one of the tribes of Israel. These tribes were scattered at one point. And when it talks about like the DNA, if that verse in Genesis 12:3 is about DNA, those who bless my people, I will bless. And we're talking about God's chosen people. Those people, if it's about DNA, then the Palestinians are more Semite than the Jews that are there today. The Jews that are there today, again, are Ashkenazi Jews. Those are implanted Jews from Europe that came down post-World War II. Matt, you can stop me at any point.
So the Ashkenazi Jews are just very, very similar and related to Sephardic Jews, which I believe means Eastern.
Spanish.
Yeah, Spanish. That's a lot of them were in Spain who got expelled.
109 countries, 1,030 times.
Yeah, Queen Isabella II, I believe, expelled them in 1492 again, which is coincidentally, you can look this up.
You can Google search this.
The Spanish Golden Age started in 1492.
If you Google search real quick, Matt, and I'll let you go. If you Google search when Jews were kicked out of Spain, there's a year that comes up.
1492.
And then if you Google search when did Spain's Golden Age start, there's another year that comes up.
1492.
1492. So anyways.
But to your point, there's a lot of false stuff that's out there that a lot of people adhere to, and that is the whole Khazar thing. The whole Khazar theory is actually just completely false. The whole Khazar theory is that, they're not the real Jews. They came over and they took their role or whatever, which number one, the whole Khazar theory comes from and stems from a book called The 13th Tribe, which was written by Arthur Koestler, which is exactly right. And it's about basically shifting blame away from them on Europeans. Now, anybody can look this up and research this. Historically speaking, Jews were the most inbred race that ever existed. They were so inbred that they had so many diseases. They were kind of forced to marry Eastern Europeans to get rid of that inbreeding, and they had so many medical problems, and that's why obviously inbreeding is bad for any group of people. That's why you shouldn't inbreed with your family members. So they were so inbred that they had to marry Europeans, mainly Eastern Europeans. A lot of them moved, Poland, Russia. They were kicked out of so many places. They were constantly a nomadic people because they kept on getting kicked out of country after country after country. But they're still real Jews. They're still real Jews because they follow the Torah. So even if they weren't, let's just say hypothetically they weren't genetically Jewish, they're still following what the Torah says, which is Jewish supremacy.
Okay,
so
that's my point. You just articulated what I couldn't, is when you take someone like me and they're still attached onto that guilt of these are God's chosen. You've heard this last 50 years of your life, and it makes no sense how if I choose to accept Christ, which is what the New Testament advocates, and it kind of breaks the covenant of the Old Testament, then that means I'm part of a family. Only this group of people keeps saying, no, you're not. We're the chosen. You are not, which is completely antithetical to the whole ideology of being a Christian. It doesn't make sense. So then when I started watching this documentary, it's saying exactly what you just said. There is so much cross-pollination in their species they don't have. They can't trace the genealogy back to what they were doing. So I think this is where I went, this makes so much damn sense. They leverage these people, the ones who are in control, their choice. You can't ask a Jew today, hey, trace back your genealogy and which tribe you came from. They can't. It's not, they say they've lost everything that documents that. So it's now a choice. They willingly choose their religion. They mock our religion, and they leverage that. And they leverage two things. We talked about this yesterday with Kayla. They leverage the most powerful tool on the planet for domination and control, finance and religion. They leverage those two things, and it's impossible, because you can't disprove a negative, for any of us to go, you're not God's chosen, because we can't trace you back to X, Y, and Z. So when I saw all that,
it can. But they can trace back. They can trace back.
Well, Dan Bilzerian's brought this up in multiple podcasts, actually, and Dan Bilzerian said something that's actually true, is that they don't allow for genetic DNA testing in Israel.
Oh, really?
I have no idea about that, but you can't even become a citizen unless you can prove that you have.
But it's the one of return.
It's still half. You have to prove that you have genetic DNA
that's Jewish.
Right.
But on the mother's side, yes.
Well, I don't know. That might be the case. That could be the case.
I think that's the right of return.
They are genetically tied back. They are. Ashkenazi Jew is a race. This is done biologically. You can swab somebody's mouth and find out what race they are. So it's definitely attributed as a race. A lot of people don't like to say that, but
they can't go back.
Well, there's 12 tribes is in a book. 12 tribes is written in a book. Okay, so no one even knows if that's true or not. There's no archaeological evidence that say there were 12 tribes, but let's just say there were. What if all tribes were Jewish? If you're Native American, what tribe are you from?
Oh, that was one of their clarifications.
You're still Native American. You're still Native American. What tribe are you from? It doesn't matter. You're Native American. So again, it's all still genetic. There's still a genetic trait there that they can trace back. Maybe not to what tribe. Who knows what tribes existed? Well, again, there's no archaeological evidence to prove. Oh, this tribe existed here. This tribe existed there. But there is. There's a fact that you are Jewish. And again, it can be genetically traced back that you are Jewish. Which tribe? Again, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not an expert in that field, if they existed or not. If you can actually prove that there were 12 tribes, I don't know.
Yeah, what they were saying is Jew was a tribe, came from Judah, and you had Hebrews before and Israelites, and they were saying that Jews were not Israelites and they were not Hebrews, and it was scattered among Europe, Southern Europe, Egypt, all over the place. So again, the more that you look into this stuff, the more when you take the veil off, you realize how fucking ignorant we all are, just swallowing everything we're taught. It's a blanket statement, Jew, and all my life, well, Jesus was a Jew. No, Jesus was an Israelite, according to what all that those tribes of separation come down. And then there was Hebrew, and there was a massive inbreeding and dissociation and crossbreeding with tribes. So again, what's that saying? It's hard to be focused when you're confused. So there's so much information, you're confused, and then what do we as Americans do, since we don't bother any research or anything else? Oh, they're the chosen, they're the Jews, and we got to bow down to them. To me, for me, that's what this was, is the more information you see, the easier it is to eat the elephant, one bite at a time, and see that it's not this mysticism, we're God's chosen bullshit they say it is.
Well, that's what the church does, though. Largely speaking, most churches, both Catholic and Christian, basically state that.
Yes.
They adhere to the Old Testament. We talked about this last week. The Gnostic Christians the first Christians didn't even believe in any of this. They said the God of the Old Testament was the enemy, the Demiurge, the evil deity, the imposter God. If this existed for hundreds of years, this is the first Christians. So again, as long as Christians are going to adhere to the Old Testament, aka Torah, then they're going to believe this. And this is sort of like a subversion. It's a trick that was forced upon all of Europe in about 300-400 AD. It was forced. And then they combined the two books to have that Bible, King James. You have all these other ones that weren't even the original Christian beliefs. So it's all got twisted, and that's what people adhere to today. The best thing for Christians to do now is research what the very first Christians believed, that were closer to the timeline that lived amongst when Jesus Christ existed. They believed that Jesus Christ was the son of the God of creation, not the Demiurge, the imposter God of the Old Testament.
Yeah,
but people are so brainwashed over 1,500 years of indoctrination through the church to make everybody think it's the same God. And the first Christians never believed that.
There was a segment in this this podcast, and it's called "Why Jews Are Not the Chosen People," and it's a hard pill for me to swallow right now, and it backs up what you've said the other day. Well, a couple of times you talk about us Christians are sitting on our hands waiting for God to come back, and there's a segment in there where they talk about when Jesus was baptized, when he was crucified, and the development of the Catholic Church, and how it's actually the Catholic Church that's how they wound up pacifying us and controlling us with the creation of the concept of Jesus is coming back. So when I heard that, I'm like, oh, I need to listen to this more. I'm halfway done with this, and it's very unsettling thinking how, you got Constantine put this together, and it's another method of control that the revelation is not what we were taught it was. And it might be a concept that, he's coming back, but not in the way you think or whatnot. And that always goes back, I've said it a million times, to Proverbs 3:5. Do not rely on your own understanding. This is such a mind fuck when you peel this down. And then you can see that because it's so hard to focus on it, we are going to give the two enlightened ones, the Catholic Church and the Jewish people, control over what to feed us, and we swallow whatever they put on our plate.
Yeah. Again, this comes down to, for Christians, when you look at that old covenant that's in the Old Testament that God made with Abraham and his seed, that was done away with. 2 temples have been destroyed. And if they didn't get the message that covenant's dead, it's all over the New Testament, including Hebrews. If you go to Hebrews chapter 8, it literally says, Hebrews chapter 8, verse 13, by calling this covenant new, he has made the first one obsolete. Mm-hmm. It's done. It's over. You go to Hebrews 8:13, it says it right there. By calling this covenant new, he has made the first one obsolete. But Christians will hold on to that and cling to that old covenant, because what they're trying to do, and this is just my personal opinion of dealing with people in the church, dealing with Christians that are Zionist Christians that believe that Israel of today is Israel of the Bible and they have a duty to bless it. I think they're being selfish, and I think they're looking for the blessing of God by that verse. They're looking to get that blessing. When I look around, Matt and I have pointed this out. Since 1948, there's not been a bigger supporter of that country than the United States of America. We've given them more military supplies and more money than any other country. You look at Britain and you look at France, they gave them a bunch of stuff too. There's no question. There's no question. But there has not been a country that has done more for Israel than the United States of America. And when I look around and I'm saying, okay, where are the blessings then? If that verse is true, then where are the blessings? And I know some of you are going to say, oh, well, look at the country. We're one of the most prosperous nations that ever. And you're saying Christians will say solely based on our support of Israel, that's why we're so prosperous. But ask yourself this, if you're $36.5 trillion in debt, yep, are you really that prosperous?
Well, yeah. Well, is that because of it? Because we were doing pretty good before Israel existed. From 1776 all the way to 1948, we were doing good without it.
Right. So
it doesn't even make sense for that. But let me go to what you said, Dominic, about the Catholic Church. Please. And you're probably familiar with this as well. Yeah. In Luke 22:31-34, it says, this is Jesus speaking to Simon Peter. Quote, Simon, stay on your toes. Satan has tried his best to separate all of you from me, like chaff from wheat. Simon, I've prayed for you in particular that you not give in or give out. When you have come through the time of testing, turn to your companions and give them a fresh start. 33, Peter said, Master, I'm ready for anything with you. I'd go to jail for you. I'd die for you. Jesus said, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but before the rooster crows, you will have denied me 3 times. Now, Peter is the first pope, technically the first pope of the Catholic Church. Yep. Again, where he was told that he would deceive him, and Satan would deceive him in starting that church. To your point,
it makes sense. You don't need history for this shit. It all makes sense when you come. It's like, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a fucking duck, right? I don't have the bandwidth to process the information you put out, Scott puts out, the guy that you had, OG3, whatever. I watch his stuff. I want to drink. That's how mind-blowing it is, right? And I've told him that. But it makes sense. All of us are looking for some way, especially when it comes to faith. Does it ever blow your mind? Oh, I'm sorry, but Islam is not as powerful as the Catholic Church or the Jews. They're not. They're not. Neither is Buddhism. Neither is, Hinduism or anything else. The two most powerful, just manipulative forces on this planet are Catholicism and Judaism, because they play off of each other. They absolutely mirror each other, because you want the Catholic Church to sit there and have all of your people controlled. Well, we control people with money. We just do. And if they're going to be in cahoots with one another, that's how you do it. You dumb down your people, Catholics, tithe, turn a blind eye, never criticize the Pope for having a golden toilet in which he shits on while probably a little boy's blowing him, and we're never going to acknowledge that shit. And then at the same time, elevate the people who know how to run the money. I don't know about you guys. I went to Catholic grammar school for 8 years. Social studies, science, religion. 8th grade, they taught us how to write checks, if anybody remembers what those things were.
Yeah.
They never taught us banking, finance, interest. When I went to high school, was never a thing. So it blows me away how the greatest tool to control people, there are one of two things. You control atheists with finance, or you control those of faith with faith and finance. And you give one person the monopoly on how to manipulate it, one group, and then another group saying, hey, listen, we're going to feed you all the people you need for it through our church, and we're going to sit there and allude to bowing down to you as they wind up tithing, donating, and they're never going to fucking ask questions why. You strip away everything you said, and I'm just going to go, yeah, this makes complete sense.
Well, it's easy whenever both of those groups adhere to the same book called the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
That it's easy. If you guys are adhering to the same bullshit fucking book, the Old Testament, then of course it's easy. You believe the same thing.
I don't understand.
God.
I've never understood this. You guys are you teach firearms. You're militia. I have revolvers. They don't jam. They're classic, this and that. But would you teach a firearm course for the general public based off of revolvers versus semi-automatic? With the modern technology, it's like, why are you going backwards on something? I don't understand why. Here's Catholics, here's Christians. All right, here's the new covenant. It's not that what do we need? You need history to understand, but why are you still teaching out of something that no longer applies once his sacrifice is one and done, unless you want to manipulate and control?
And that's exactly what the Roman Empire did. They forced it upon the entire Roman Empire, which is all of Europe, in 315 AD. And it was actually, pagans were slaughtered. Pagans were put to death. And I'm using that word loosely because they didn't call themselves that. If you believed in any of the other Norse gods, Roman gods, Greek gods, you were literally put to death. You were a heretic and you were put to death. You were executed. And I don't know why Constantine did it. We talked about this with Adam Green. We don't know why it happened. We have no idea why, but they got away from the Gnostic Christians' point of view. So to your point, they got rid of that whole new covenant thing because you now accept the Old Testament as if it was the actual God of creation, and it's not. He was an imposter god. The first Christians said this clearly. We've gotten away from that. Since the 3rd century AD, everybody has been brainwashed. So you're looking at 1800 years worth of brainwashing, and that's going to be very difficult to get Christians to not believe, to agree with the Gnostic point of view. It's going to be very difficult.
Well, that's the term that's been given to us as Judeo-Christian, right? Yep. Mm-hmm. Judeo-Christian. I am under the interpretation that they're two different religions. Right?
Yes.
There's Judaism and then there's Christianity. So why are we saying Judeo-Christian? And you have one of the most famous Jews in Ben Shapiro giving his opinion on Joe Rogan, what he believed, who he believed Jesus was.
Yeah, it was a criminal who was murdered for his trouble.
You should be insulted by that. You should be insulted by that because we can say things about Judaism and it's automatically labeled anti-Semitic.
Well, when Jesus comes back, they'll repent.
That's Yes. Again, they're supposed to be two very different religions. But if you don't attach the Old Testament to the New Testament, then you don't have a book like Malachi that's telling you to give 10% of your earnings to the church, which, by the way, the Catholic Church, they don't pay taxes on anything. This is the largest corporation on earth. The Catholic Church is the largest corporation on earth. They have their own city. They have their own gold. They have their own army. They have their own walls, their own protection. They don't have immigration going into the Vatican City. They have a great immigration policy. I'd like to adopt that for our country. And two, a lot of these Christian churches that are prosperity preachers like Joel Osteen, these guys are living in $20 million mansions. And they're getting this money that's supposed to be going, again, the idea behind tithing and giving money to God is so that God, this is the idea behind it, is so God can use that money. You're giving money to God so he can use that money to help the body, help the church. And a lot of these prosperity preachers like Joel Osteen, they're helping themselves.
What's his ethnicity, by the way?
Joel Osteen's Jewish. I don't know if anyone knew that or not.
No way.
You can ring the bell, Dominic.
Holy shit.
Look, if those that haven't followed us or watched a podcast before, it's every single time. When you look in,
I'm not lying.
It's like this. Over the summer, for those that don't remember, during the Paris Olympics, there was the opening ceremonies where they kind of mocked the Last Supper. And, of course, the Olympic Committee had to issue an apology, which was it. That's all they did was issue an apology. But when you look at who choreographed that, this is not a joke, folks. You can look this up. The gentleman that choreographed the opening ceremony to the 2024 Paris Olympics, his ethnicity was
Jewish.
I
forget his name, but we talked about it before.
Yes, and podcast. It's like every single time you look around.
Yeah.
And we went back and looked at the ethnicity of Emmanuel Seller, who was one of the creators of the Hart-Celler Act, which completely changed the demographics of our country and kind of undid what the 1790 Naturalization Act was for our founders to kind of cherry pick who we want coming in this country. Well, Emmanuel Seller, what was his ethnicity?
He was Jewish.
He was Jewish. You see, when you look behind some of these things and you look and see who's pulling the strings, it's like every time. And there's part of me as a Christian, by the way, when I found a lot of this stuff out that Christians get spit on in Israel, and that's apparently a Jewish tradition to spit on Christians in Israel.
There's videos of it.
And then you look at rabbis that are sucking on baby penises.
There's videos of it.
That in New York, by the way, these rabbis, when they're performing circumcisions, and this is I don't know exactly what group of Judaism this is.
They say it's ultra orthodox, but
right, they're sucking on the baby penises, and there's been multiple instances of these rabbis giving these babies herpes.
Yep.
And then you look at the Talmud. I had no idea that the Talmud said that Jesus was boiling in a vat of shit, and that they referred to Mary as a whore and all this stuff. This was devastating for me to find out as a Christian, who my entire life I've been taught to almost worship these people or set these people up on a pedestal. They're our greatest ally. They're closest to us in our belief systems. They're a democracy in the Middle East. They're all these different things that we're supposed to be linked together because we serve the same God. We hear people like Mike Huckabee, who is going to be the ambassador to Israel, repeat ad nauseum, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We hear it over and over again. And for a Christian, a young Christian man like myself, who has been taught to honor this country and to honor these people, to find out all these different things about this country and these people and how they don't like us, how they hate us, it was devastating for me to find out, to be honest with you. But it's the truth. And if I'm given this information and it's actually backed up by facts, why then would I continue to honor these people?
Yeah.
Why would I then continue to honor this country and support this country? Why would I then continue to do that when they view me, their words, not mine, as goyim, Goyim, which literally means cattle? They don't believe that I have a human soul the same way they do. So you're still asking me to support this country and to support these people that view me as less than human or subhuman.
Yep.
No, thank you. I'm out on Israel, folks. I'm out. Sorry for all those retards that I went to school with at Christian school. You can suck it. You know where to find me. Suplex City, bitch. I don't care.
Even Thomas Jefferson knew this. Thomas Jefferson, I don't know if you know this, he wrote his own Bible called the Jefferson Bible. Are you familiar with that, Dominic?
I did not put two and two together. That was his.
Yeah, so the Jefferson wrote a Jefferson Bible. You know what he did? Scrapped the entire Old Testament, and everything in there was Jesus Christ's own words and what he taught. That was it. He scrapped the entire Old Testament because it was garbage. This is Thomas Jefferson, in my opinion, greatest president that ever lived. And he called himself a true Christian because I believe in the teachings of Jesus Christ. Well, there's no teachings of Jesus Christ in the Old Testament. He literally scrapped it. Anybody can look this up. And I urge everyone to read his paper he wrote called The Syllabus, which gives him his opinion on Christianity and religion in general.
I'm thinking about the advancement of new knowledge in every aspect of my personal life. It didn't matter if it was law enforcement training. Well, we don't do that anymore because we found out X, Y, and Z, and then you do this instead. Martial arts. Well, we don't. This is where the lineage broke off because they determined blah, blah, blah. We go X, Y, and Z. Look at modern medicine. We don't put leeches on people anymore to bloodlet them, do we? It's like you found out, well, that really wasn't working when you augured a hole in your mother's head to get the demons out of her skull. So you have an advancement of everything in culture except the Old Testament. I just don't understand it. I do not understand how it's clear cut, as Americans are, that you were clearly given the new covenant, his sacrifice. You're all fucked up. I'm coming to earth as a man. I'm going to do all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I believe everything of that happened 100%. And now here's my commandment to you. He leaves another one, love one another as I love you, and try to live more like me. Awesome. Not put a little box on your forehead and wrap leather all over your arms and put some scrolls in this and then throw a chicken in the air. It's like, no, dudes, all this stuff was done. So I don't understand what why are we going back and doing it the old way? Well, we have to honor them. We have to honor them for any Christian, any person to accept Christ as God, Savior, Lord, and to say, well, Israel is the chosen one. You're not Christian. You're not.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Yeah. So these conversations need to continue to happen until people wake up.
Yeah, and they again, God Yahweh wants to kill you for seeking knowledge, as in Genesis. And believe it or not, all the old sects, the Christian Gnostic sects, especially the Nicaeans, they literally believed that the snake in the garden was Jesus Christ. That's what they believe.
And who were they?
Who
was the Council of Nicaea? Aren't they what?
Go ahead.
Oh, wait a second. Catholics, we had the Nicene Creed.
Oh, well, they were back then. They were snake people. They sort of worshipped the snake. They believed Jesus was the snake in the garden. That's why they called themselves the Nicaeans. Because I believe Nicaean, whatever that means, it's Greek, I believe, or Hebrew for snake.
I do not remember what the Nicene Creed. I believe in one God. The God. Oh my God! I remember this. Fucking getting chills. I believe in one God. This is when in church there was anybody who's ever been raised Catholic. Bow, genuflect. They've changed so much in the Catholic Church. It's ridiculous. And there was a point. It wasn't every Sunday. Every now and then, we'd have to do the Nicene Creed. I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, all of seen and unseen. I believe in one Lord, Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God, born of the Father, before all ages, God from God, light from light, true God from true God. And it's this chant. It's about fucking 30 lines of a chant, and none of us really paid attention to it. We just swear in solidarity to whatever rhythmic a brainwashing that we were taught without any adherence to personal knowledge for ourselves. That was me. I didn't study the Bible until 2022. And I had only known Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Anything else was Old Testament, meant, you got a hangnail that day, means God's hates you. And don't you dare dive into Romans or Hebrew or learn anything else. Because if you read Romans, Hebrew, and you start learning about the fact that without faith, everything else you've learned is garbage, you start seeing you are responsible for your own faith, not fucking church. And the control is gone. It's insane.
And this is This is why there's warning labels on Bibles in South Dakota now.
That's true.
Because the New Testament, Dominic, is anti-Semitic.
Well, also, too, when you look at here, Dominic, when you started this and you're talking about the control through finance, and then you're talking about control through religion, there's also control through information, education, and also control through media. And with education, Matt pointed this out to me on a podcast that I didn't know, and I thought, this can't be possible. And then I looked into it, and I wasn't surprised when Matt told me this, but when I actually looked and dug for myself, I'm like, holy crap, it's the truth. And that's why you only get a certain narrative or one side of the story when it comes to World War I, World War II, a different history. It's like, we bring this up, and it's a very popular subject nowadays because people are getting, woke to the JQ, so to speak. But they're bringing up the USS Liberty a lot. The USS Liberty is getting brought up a lot, because you have different people coming out that are survivors of the USS Liberty, and it hasn't been taught in school. It wasn't taught. I never knew about the USS Liberty until Matt and I got into a lot of these topics together. And here you wonder, why wasn't that taught to me in school? Or why wasn't the fact that, Ulysses S. Grant, the general of the North of 18th President of the United States, issued an order number 11 that would expel Jews from Tennessee, Mississippi, and Kentucky during the Civil War.
Military service.
I didn't know that he did that. How come I didn't learn that? Well, then you come to find out that here, the textbooks that we use in our schools, there were two major companies. And Matt pointed this out on a podcast, and today I'll share the link in the story on the podcast page. But there were two major companies. There was Macmillan and McGraw-Hill. Those were the companies that published textbooks here in the United States of America that went to our public schools.
1978, 1979, when the Department of Education was created by the federal government. Go ahead.
So here, Macmillan later bought McGraw-Hill. Now, the person that owned the Macmillan Publishing Company, his name was Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell had a daughter. Her name was Ghislaine Maxwell. She was the girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein. Robert Maxwell was a known Mossad agent, and here he owned a publishing company located in the UK that was publishing textbooks that were being used across this country. Those textbooks, of course, being published by an Israeli Mossad agent, that's what gave us our information. So, of course, we're not going to learn about the USS Liberty. Of course, we're not going to learn. I didn't learn about the Havara Transfer Agreement. I didn't learn about the Balfour Declaration. I didn't learn about any of this stuff. However, I had to watch Schindler's List twice a year.
Yeah.
And it was like, what are we doing here? I can't learn other information. When I find that stuff out, I'm like, holy crap, you're telling me that our greatest ally bombed a USS naval vessel, killing 34 sailors June 7th, 1967, on the 6-Day War. And here I'm like, they're our greatest ally. They would never do something like that.
Hey, are you
and
guys
then you start
able,
hearing the first hand.
Can you guys, if I pull something up on the screen, can you guys see it? Okay. I have a quick question for those who are wondering about, Scott, speaking conspiracy theories. The man on the left is Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father. Yeah. Do you know who this woman is on the couch is? Who's
Mother Teresa.
That's Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of conspiracies about her dealing with child sex trafficking.
Are you kidding me? Makes total sense.
I have not looked. Go ahead.
I went to St. Teresa's Catholic Grammar School, but it was actually named after a different nun. I wasn't, because Mother Teresa hadn't died then. But we were told for decades about Mother Teresa and the fucking saint she was. And if you actually talk to people who knew her, they say she was just a mean bitch. The theory, and if you've ever put a picture of her next to Dr. Fauci, they look like mother and son. The theory is that she had a direct line to the Pope, and she was placed in a position of where those children of that impoverished area, nobody's going to give a rat shit about them going missing. So there was a theory that she was a head of a child sex trafficking ring for the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I've heard that conspiracy. I've not looked into it, but I mean, it's something that should be researched and investigated.
Not only that, there's a conspiracy out there. Again, you can connect dots to certain things, but there's still information out there that you need to complete the entire puzzle. But Mother Teresa worked closely with the Clinton Foundation in Haiti. The Clinton Foundation went down to Haiti after there was this devastation down there. I mean, Haiti's always been riddled with earthquakes or with certain things, and the Clinton Foundation works down there with Haiti and Mother Teresa. And of course, there's conspiracies out there that, again, Mother Teresa was closely connected to some child trafficking things with the Clinton Foundation, who have also been accused of child trafficking. But, you know, these are all just speculation. Who knows if any of it's actually true. But the picture of Dr. Anthony Fauci next to Mother Teresa, they do look very similar. Yeah. That's all. I'll agree with you there.
Everybody knows, man, Catholics, you know, the people who are so sexually repressed are the freakiest ones out there. It is what it is, man. I'm telling you, the saints out there, I don't know how much time we have on stuff, but it's like I was going to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King because it was his birthday or whatever it was the other day. Yep. And it's like he was alleged to be a CIA kind of like operative who was leveraged for his orgies and sex scandals and the other. It's like everybody is just a piece of shit on everything. I want to go in one direction because I voted for Trump, but it's like, my eyes are open on shit. Elon Musk being brought into the forefront of the Trump inner circle, all this, and we can't talk about the thing that people put in their arm because you get banned on certain channels. That they took a certain chemical that went in their bodies a couple of years ago that kept being told every few months you needed an update on. And this was announced. I want to back up 2 years ago. This is Elon Musk. Talking about mRNA and AI. And now mRNA, I'll dumb that down. That had to do with what we were putting in our body and kind of the manipulation of it. And Trump he spearheaded Operation Warp Speed to get that out to us. So, you know, we have that. But I want you to listen to Elon Musk, his words on mRNA and artificial intelligence.
Do you see any positive effects in the COVID pandemic?
I think there are many silver linings. The advancement of synthetic RNA was accelerated significantly because of COVID.
And it's going to help with cancer, allergies, bacterial diseases. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, synthetic RNA is a revolution in medicine that most people are not aware of just how much of a revolution that is. I would say this is like medicine going from analog to digital.
And that could be the big accelerator here, during the plague, which also was an accelerator of progress in society and medical progress big times. Optimus is also an answer to the problem of drop in birth rates. If we have not enough human people, we need more bots.
For Optimus, I think Optimus will be helpful with respect to dropping birth rates. But I mean, like I said, you have to say, like, if these things continue, then what happens? Humanity dies out? Is that what we want?
Or step by step replaced by artificial intelligence, human beings that Neuralink is empowering.
Well, yeah, I mean, Neuralink, in the short term, Neuralink is just about solving, brain injuries and spinal injuries and that kind of thing. We could effectively merge with artificial intelligence.
Could you imagine that one day we would be able to download our human brain capacity into a Optimus?
Yes.
This was yesterday at Trump's announcement, Stargate AI infrastructure project, and I'm going to play a little bit of this. So this is at least 2 years after Musk says all that.
These guys can maybe share more about some of the work they're doing there. I think they'll jointly be some of the leaders about driving progress here. But I believe that as this technology progresses, we will see diseases get cured at an unprecedented rate. We will be amazed at how quickly we're curing this cancer and that one and heart disease, and what this will do for the ability to deliver very high quality healthcare, the costs, but really to cure the diseases at a rapid rate, I think will be among the most important things this technology does.
Great. Very good. Thank you.
So we're currently working on, should I step on this? Okay. All right. No. I'm not that tall. I'm not that tall.
You look even better.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the most exciting things we're working on, using the tools that Sam and Masa are providing, is a cancer vaccine. It's very interesting. It turns out, I'll be quick, all of our cancers, cancer tumors, little fragments of those tumors float around in your blood. So you can do early cancer detection. If you can do using you can do early cancer detection with a blood test. And using AI to look at the blood test, you can find the cancers that are actually seriously threatening the person. So we can, again, cancer diagnosis using AI has the promise of just being a simple blood test. Then beyond that, once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer.
You go listen to it on your own. And you know,
who was that? Who was just speaking? Who was just speaking there?
This is Larry Ellison.
Oh, yeah. What's his ethnicity?
Ellison, Oracle Chief Technology Officer. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but is there a possibility that whatever everybody pumped in their fucking bodies back in 2022, 23, and the constant upkeep, that now, we can detect shit in your body and design a specific vaccine for you, and you're going to do it because you're going to believe your doctor. And Elon Musk just happens to be talking about this 2 years ago. Starlink, he's somebody obsessed with the clouds and planets and all this shit. They're all in on this shit. They are all in on this shit.
And Trump supported it. And Trump supports it too. He just came out. He's getting a lot of criticisms because he supports it. Where's RFK Jr.? Where the fuck's RFK Jr. at? I haven't heard anything from him.
I haven't heard a thing from him.
Yeah, it's weird.
Well, he still hasn't been confirmed yet as the HHS secretary.
Yeah.
We're still going to go through those hearings. You'll see, Kristi Noem going through those hearings.
She got confirmed.
Did she get confirmed?
I think so.
And Rubio got confirmed too because he's been sworn in too. I saw Rubio get confirmed. Pete Hegseth got confirmed. Yes, this is big business. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
A cure for a disease would mean less money for the pharmaceutical companies. How do they want to cure anything? They want to give a vaccine for everything.
Yep.
And you're
going to have to keep up on the vaccines. But
that's right.
Elon Musk, first of all, is full of shit. This whole dropping birth rate shit, that is a complete and utter fucking lie. We now have the most populated planet than ever before. There's only drops in birth rates from certain groups of people. Namely whites, right? They're down to 8% of the world population. 8%. The only dropping birth rate is white European, ethnic Europeans. That is the only group that is dropping. Everyone else is rising. The entire population of the world is increasing. So Elon Musk is full of shit when he talks about dropping birth rates.
Well, you look in New York City last year, and it's happened for the last couple of years. There were more black babies aborted than were born in the city of New York. You can look this up. You can Google search this. It's true. So, again, I don't know about the African-American community, but abortion clinics, they're specifically put in these low poverty communities for a reason. And Margaret Sanger, who was the founder of Planned Parenthood, she said that, the goal there of Planned Parenthood was to eradicate a certain group.
They still overpopulate whites.
The birth rates. You're talking about birth rates.
Yes, correct.
Of that ethnic group.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, look, Matt's not wrong here. It's the truth that certain demographics are increasing while other demographics are decreasing.
Just a fact.
That's just what's going on.
How is this even a discussion when it's lack of impulse control? I mean, when you drink, don't your inhibitions get lowered? When you take tren, don't your inhibitions get lowered? When you are nonstop in a state of fucking weed and malt liquor and fucking drugs and a culture that glorifies hoeing and fucking shit, are you not going to just be having sex nonstop and pumping out kids and shit.
And who's to say we're not overpopulated and we need to drop? I can make the argument that we need to be less populated. You can make that argument easy. All these people that are in poverty, homeless.
Well, when it comes to the vaccines here, the mRNA vaccines and people that have done their own research, this is directly affecting your DNA. This is what the mRNA vaccines do. And this was pushed on us in 2020. Remember that. And Donald Trump was at the forefront of Operation Warp Speed, and he still touts it to this day.
To this day, he still praises the vaccine.
He will not let that go, and I think for several reasons. I think one of them is because he's a stubborn dude, and he'll never admit that he was wrong on anything, and he never has. He doubles down, and that's an issue. That's a tactic and a strategy that's used in politics all the time, and the left uses it better than anybody.
But I disagree because he admitted that he appointed the wrong people to his first administration. He admitted that he didn't really know what he was doing his first time around. But he's not going to admit that the vaccine didn't work, because if he did that, then most of his supporters will not take vaccines in the future, and they will not make the pharmaceutical companies more money. So, of course, he's going to say that because that's who he's beholden to. Remember, the vaccine companies, the Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, they all benefited from this. Stocks went up. He owns stock in those companies. He's not going to denounce something where he makes money from, and his financiers and his donors are going to make money, which he is beholden to. So that's why he won't do it.
We talked about this earlier today. I'll give Donald Trump some credit here. He just signed an executive order that would allow military members that were kicked out because they refused the vaccine, they're allowed to come back now with back pay. Yeah. That was one of the executive orders
but what are you doing?
And it's thanks to him that they got kicked out.
You're buying your supporters.
Of the vaccine he created.
Yeah, you're buying your supporters. I mean, shit, when you were put in that desperate position of the last 3 years, I don't have a job, and then all of a sudden somebody just swoop in and say, I'm going to reinstate you and give you all that back pay, you're going to do whatever he says. He's buying supporters again. After it's the ultimate gaslighting, right? It's what guys do when we date abroad, and she's a 7, or she's an 8, she's a 9, right? And we're a fucking 3 or a 5. We're gonna talk to her like she's a piece of shit, lowering her value nonstop, and then we're gonna just love bomb her with compliments every now and then. Oh, you look great. Oh, so her self-confidence is so shitty that the only time she seeks validation is from us, not from other men. We know how to keep him on a leash. He's doing the same damn thing. They talk about this DNA mapping, right? This gene mapping. DNA mapping, also called genetic mapping, is the process of determining the relative positions of specific DNA sequences, like genes, on chromosomes, essentially creating a map of the genome by identifying the order and distance between different genetic markers, allowing researchers to study how genes inherently and potentially linked to disease. This often achieved by analyzing patterns of inheritance and using techniques like restrictions, enzymes, digestion, identified. Does this not sound like what they accused the Nazis of doing with the final solution?
Except for they were against vaccines and against abortion.
But you're trying to map out. This is their guise. They're doing it under the guise of, well, I can prevent you from getting cancer. I can do early detection in your blood. And because you were stupid enough to take this shit in your system in 2022, now all of a sudden, look, see on this slide? I'm going to put the microscope up on the computer here so you can see in my office, because I'm wearing the white lab coat. You've got this fuzzy looking amoeba floating around with the tentacles in your thing. That's not good. We need to get that out of there, even though you don't know what an amoeba is or a white blood cell or anything. Now I'm going to give you this new vaccine specifically designed for you, because you are a stupid American who believes whatever bold print is told to you. You don't eat properly, you don't work out, you don't take care of yourself, but an injection in your arm specifically designed to you that's going to alter your DNA to breed the humans we want 2 generations from now. That is eugenics. That is fucking the final solution. And it's under Trump.
You think they will force it? You think they'll force this vaccine?
Just remember, they're probably not they're not going to have to.
No.
They ran a test run already. People are going to willingly take this vaccine, specifically if they can sell it under the guise of it curing cancer or strains of cancer. This is what this vaccine they're talking about here. And we already ran a test run.
Go back to that, Scott, for a second, because I think, and I could be misquoting this, every person has the potential to get cancer. It's like the only living being on this planet they found that does not and cannot get cancer are sharks. So they can create any bullshit they want. Oh, you've got a 0.5% chance of getting cancer in the next 10 years. And how many people will be like my mother and just, oh, doctor says to do this, I have to do this. Please inject me twice. There are people they won't need, especially when you do them the favors like reinstating the military, getting back to 2 genders, securing the border. Now you're 76 million voters that supported you this time around. We want to make America healthy again. Just like Steve Rogers, just take this shot. They'll be all good for it. And they're going to fucking line up and take it.
People are absolutely going to take it. The test run was already 2020, 2021, 22. People, and I'm talking about like Republicans, were standing in line to take this vaccine, to take the boosters. Make sure you get your boosters. Are you up to date on your boosters?
Trump said so.
Trump, this vaccine, they put their faith in, and it's not that I don't blame them. I do blame people for not doing their own research. But when you put your trust in the government and you put your trust in government officials, you're going to blindly follow them because they know what's best. We've elected these people. They're smarter than me. They've gone to Ivy League schools. They've ran businesses. They know what they're doing. And I trust these health officials. Why shouldn't I trust Dr. Anthony Fauci? He's telling us, hey, we have to take this vaccine and make sure you're up to date on your boosters. And people will follow suit with this one as well.
Yeah, it's actually called dysgenics. Eugenics would be for the positive. Eugenics would be progress physically. Okay. Dysgenics would be negative. Negative effects.
But they're going to market
dysgenics, actually.
I disagree with you. They're going to market it as eugenics.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yes. No. I agree with that. I'm telling you what it actually is, though. Right. What people need to know. It actually is. They want an entire world of weak slaves. And they're almost there. Well, they're almost there.
That's obvious by our television programming, our diet, every single commercial that's being pushed on us, whatever it is. I mean, you look, really, we made jokes during the 2020 shutdown and lockdowns that the real pandemic was obesity. That was the problem, is you have a nation full of overweight people that eat like shit, that don't exercise, don't get sunlight, that watch all this garbage on television, that we're addicted to our phones, we're addicted to screen time, and it's creating a sedentary lifestyle for everybody in the country. So they've already created a nation of slaves. They've already created a nation of lazy, weak people. We've looked at, people that are signing up for the military, the recruitment numbers are way down, and in part because a great majority of them would not fit or meet the physical requirements or standards, and psychological standards too. Half the 18 and over population, like specifically females, they're all on some sort of medication, whether it be like Adderall or antidepressants or something to get them, right. They're all messed up in the head. They all have these psychological, emotional issues, and they're all on something. Now it's Ozempic. People are taking Ozempic because they want to lose weight, and it's like a fat loss drug that's causing like intestinal problems and all these different things. But there's always going to be a next pill, and there's always going to be a next vaccine, and they're going to market this as an anti-cancer vaccine, and you're going to take a shot twice a year, and the pharmaceutical companies are going to continue to rake in that money, and people are going to line up. And when you go into your doctor's going to push it on you because he's going to get kickbacks from the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, Ted Kaczynski was right. Ted Kaczynski was right.
Smart guy.
I mean,
he was. Didn't he go to MIT or something?
Yeah. He predicted all of this. Yeah. Read his manifesto.
I still got to get through my
We've given Dominic a little bit too much to read and look into.
It's a pain in the butt, and it's distracting, and it's enraging, because at 1.2, where do you just sit back and go, there's not much I could do. And then the flip side of that coin, and this kind of transitions into something else I wanted to bring up. Where do you start to go, oh, I'm obligated to do something? I'm curious if you guys have thought about the January 6ers who were released. Like, I had wondered if you have an Enrique Tarrio, I believe his name was, and Joe Biggs.
Torres.
Thank you. They
Proud Boys.
Yeah, right. And I don't want to generalize. I really don't know. I'm just assuming. Let's just say Proud Boys is a militia. If you're a member of a militia, which I think is imperative, the more I look into it, except for in my state, you're not allowed to do it without express permission of Governor Pritzker, which is completely negates the purpose of it. If you go to prison for 4 years, 3 years, whatever it was, and you're supposed to serve an 18-year sentence, and your window, Trump comes in and your window is now limited because you've got a certain length of time of where this president's still in office. Are you going to go back home and lick your wounds and kind of fly under the radar? Or are you going to triple the fuck down and say we need to be bigger, stronger, faster, more vocal about what the government can do, as what you just saw with me, and we need to have a standby status, constantly ready, because Daddy Trump is not going to be around to pardon us next time, and the government has proven they will come over and they'll kick our doors in and take us. What do you think the mindset is of these guys who got released? They're going to be going home licking their wounds, or?
Well, most of them weren't Proud Boys. Most of them, I think they, again, they're just going to worship Donald Trump. That's why they were there in the first place, is because they worship Donald Trump. Even though he's the one who told them to come to D.C., he's the one who told them to walk down to the Capitol. He's the one who said he would be there with him, and then he went home. He got in his car and left. And then all of a sudden, whenever all this stuff happened, what did he do? Goes on national television, calls the people who entered the building and all the agitators and all the people that entered the Capitol, called them all criminals, talked all kinds of shit on them, and he publicly announced that he's the one who activated the National Guard, and they'll all be brought to justice. That was him. But you can watch the video. You can watch the video when he said it live. And they still suck this guy's balls. They're the reason he was in jail. He could have preemptively pardoned all of them if he wanted to in the last 14 days he was in office.
Right, because January 6th was the confirmation, the votes. That was confirming the votes.
That's correct. He had 14 days in office. You know what else he could have done? Charged and arrested Officer Byrd for executing Ashley Babbitt. Never did any of that.
Murdering Babbitt. Yep.
And these people still suck this guy's balls off.
And they'll continue to, too, but they will, because you look at some of these stuff like Dominic said, he's giving them the little nuggets that they want, right? He knows that coming into office, he had to sign an executive order pardoning those January 6ers, because that was something that his base would have turned on him.
I predicted that. I predicted it would be the first thing he did. He had to do it, and he did it.
He had to do it. Yeah. Reinstituting the military members that got out because they refused to take the vaccine, that was another one that they gave to, but who's the guy who created the vaccine and pushed it?
And right? they could have put in operation the legislation they wrote. He could have easily have put in there, you cannot force this upon anybody. No government agency, no small business is allowed to force this vaccine by threat of being fired from your job. No one's allowed to do that. This is a voluntary thing. He could have easily put that in the legislation. Anybody could have, but nope, he didn't do it.
Even something as small as this TikTok ban. Now Trump signs an executive order kind of extending the deadline so that they can come up with some sort of, agreement here on who's going to buy or invest and divest and all this stuff. You have guys like Mr. Beast, who's a popular YouTuber that's even talked about buying TikTok. You have Elon Musk that's even flirted with the idea of buying TikTok. But who's the one originally that signed the executive order that would ban TikTok?
Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is fixing the problems that he started. He causes the problem, then he comes in as a superhero.
Smart. That's any brilliant business person. This is why he's a fucking genius. It's supply and demand. He's creating the fucking demand for what he supplies.
Or his supporters are fucking retards. How about that? Maybe it's not that smart that you got to be fucking retarded to buy into this.
You know what?
Where's the lie?
But hey, when the world goes to shit, you're going to be selling mud so people could let it dry in the sun, turn it into bricks for the new homes they fucking build. It's not your fault that the people are dumb. You just happen, hey, I got water, I got mud. Give me 2 of your wives right now. He is leveraging people who blindly worship him, and it's not going to stop. I just saw something today. Some woman commented on a page, or I watched the whole this female priest yesterday at something where Trump was at, and she's and whatever. I really couldn't care less because I don't think women should be preaching anything. Just preach the kind of sandwich you're making for lunch. And some woman made a comment of whoever allowed this woman to speak should be fired. And I put in the comment section, I said, absolutely not. I said, this person's a hero. They allowed this thing to speak and expose themselves and look like a fool. Blah, blah, blah. A Trump supporter who is a female, first indication, who had Trump's picture as her bio, just goes, oh, well, it's something along the line. Look at my content and took my stuff, like what I work in, my business. You're just a typical blah, 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 blah. And I went, did you not understand that was sarcasm? And I was kind of elevating Trump in that comment. Oh, I'm sorry. You know, my emotions and yeah, you fucktard. Because both sides of the liberals and the conservatives are the exact same. They want to worship their fucking God on this planet. It happens to be Trump. People still think God appointed him in office and we're saved. So when it comes down to taking a vaccine, comes down to fucking worshiping Jews, it comes down to tithe 10% to the, I don't know, the Schmiegel bagel factory for next month. And that's where your money's going to go. We're going to do it. They're going to fucking do it, dude, because he says so. I don't know what's going to happen after 2028 because the whole thing's going to be up for grabs. And I don't know who's going to wind up being the leader of this new party, but it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah, I agree. It is already the Republican Party or the conservative party. There's no, I don't believe there to be a conservative party here in this country. The Republican Party is, to me, controlled opposition. I believe, Trump has hijacked this party, and now it is the party of Trump. And what the future holds for the Republican Party, I'm not sure. The Democrat Party has a lot of things to work out too. Obviously their messaging failed, their candidate failed, but
there's no political solution to any of this. That's it. All the parties are junk, but that's all you're given. If you are going to stay in the ballot casting box, if you're going to keep yourself trapped in that box, the country's finished. Yeah. Country's finished. You're not going to outspend these big tech Silicon Valley oligarchs. You're not going to outdo the big banking finance oligarchs. You're not going to do the pharmaceutical company oligarchs. You're not going to be able to outspend them when it comes to them financing politicians that you are only allowed to vote for. That's it. They're not going to finance anybody else that's a constitutionalist. You are given your candidates to pick from. And as long as they can trick you into worshiping them for some reason, keeping the left and right fighting each other over these stupid issues, then you're going to hate the one person and love the other, no matter what side you're on.
It's a team sport. Yep. We've talked about that.
It's over. There's no political solution.
You're either wearing a blue jersey with a D on it, or you're wearing a red jersey with an R on it.
Yeah. And no one's wearing the Constitution jersey.
No one's wearing the Constitution jersey. And even the ones that do, they end up getting punished. Like Thomas Massey, they end up getting removed from their positions. Like he was on the Human
Rules and Ethics Committee.
Yeah, the Rules and Ethics Committee. He got ousted because of his stance that he's taken the way he's voted. He doesn't vote along party lines. He votes along the Constitution, and he's been punished because of it. So
because of Israel he got punished.
That's a big part of it. Yeah. Yes, that's a huge part of it. But again, I think what you're looking here is at another dynasty, another family dynasty political movement here in the country. I think Trump goes out in 2028. By that time, I think he'll be either 82 or 83, I believe.
He's 78.
And then you'll have Don.
Yeah, 78.
I think he's 78, 79, right? So he'll be 82. And then you have Don Jr. or Eric Trump or even Barron Trump. Now, Barron won't be legally able to run for president in the next 4 years, but you do have a guy like Eric. You have, and even, don't forget his daughter. Ivanka is an interesting, political figure there in the Republican Party. It's somebody I think women can get behind. So I think we've set up here as Trump moving forward will be like the Bushes or the Clintons.
Who knows that this wasn't,
if we're still alive by then?
Right, yeah. Who knows that this wasn't his intent the entire time? You're running out of places to build in real estate, New York is saturated as shit, and maybe they don't let him contract in places like Dubai or whatever. And he's like, okay, I'm out of the real estate game. We've done this. We've conquered this. Let's go to politics next. And now he's going to just let his kids take over this shit. And I'm so tired of, we allow this. Didn't we leave a monarchy only to replace it with a fucking monarchy? I'm tired of everybody you can trace back. Clinton 1, Clinton 2, Bush 2, Bush 2, Huckabee, his daughter. Fucking anybody else out there who you're just going to vote for because of their father was in the political position.
But it's not a monarchy. This is an oligarchy. Trump isn't in charge of anything. He doesn't make any decisions. He's controlled by, again, the lobbying groups, the multinational corporations, Silicon Valley, big finance, big pharma. It's an oligarch. Those are the people who run the world and the country. It's not Donald Trump. He's the figure to get everyone to go along with it because they love him. Can you imagine if everyone in the country hated whoever's president? You will have one side that worships the person in there. You're going to have half the country worship the president no matter what because they hate the other side so much they'll worship the other side.
It's divide and conquer. Now, I posed this question multiple times. I posed it, Dominic, on your Christmas special that you did. We had all those guys on like Cliff and Lola. I just asked the question, and I've asked multiple people close to me this question. I'll say, do you think we're further along now than our founders were in 1776 when they decided to pick up arms and revolt against a tyrannical government? And unanimously, people say yes. I said, okay, so now it's time, right? So now it's time we organize. We get a well-regulated militia together, state by state, county by county, get the county sheriffs involved. Let them get in on this too because they took an oath to uphold the.
These fucking county sheriffs who don't even know what the Constitution is, like this Sheriff Grady Judd. I blame, not to cut you off, but no one will pick up arms. Who are we going to follow? Because you have, and
that's the whole point.
There's too many people.
That's the whole point, Dominic. There's no leader. There's no leadership. Where are these big names, these big influencers, like you said, the blue check marks with millions of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers? Not a single one is calling for it. Only a couple of fucking construction workers and bar GMs sitting in a studio making whatever wages with 5,000 followers.
You got to think.
That's the only people doing it.
Here, our founders revolted off of not having representation. And then a 2 to 3% increase in taxes. We have a 7% drink tax here in Allegheny County and around the city of Pittsburgh. A 7% drink tax on alcohol sales, and we don't even know where that tax goes.
We had a forced vaccination. We had forced vaccinations, and we didn't revolt. We didn't. It blows me away. And I want people to start thinking, for those who think that they're on the righteous side of conservatism, you guys worship people like Sheriff Grady Judd, who will arrest someone, go up on a podium and tell his side of the story while holding their mugshot up, which is 100% complete violation of due process. Motherfucker doesn't even get a bond hearing yet, and these sheriffs, for social media fame, are vilifying them. It doesn't matter how much you can't stand these rapists and murderers and thieves. They still are afforded due process because you know what? If they do it to them, it's going to be so easy to do it to you. So no one's going to follow these people because it's every man for itself in this fucking country.
You ever see the movie The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise?
Oh, I want to go out like that. Yeah, I want to go out like that.
That's it. That's what it's going to come to.
I'm fine with that, dude.
Otherwise, you're gonna live your life existing just to consume.
I'm gonna run towards the hand crank those howitzers.
Reproduce.
Hand crank those howitzers. I'm running at it. Fucking 9 holes in half of a second. It's gonna be great. Guys, Burn Pit Podcast. What's coming up with that?
We'll be live Monday at 4 o'clock. Tune into Spreely TV. Spreely is your home for free speech. It stands for Speak Freely. Roku, Apple TV, Fire Stick. Download the Freedom Hub app. Also, in a couple of weeks, we're going to do a recorded episode with Philip Torney. Philip Torney is a survivor of the USS Liberty. We're going to sit down with him. He was recently on Candace Owens' podcast. He's been on Jake Shields' podcast. We're going to have him in studio. He's flying in. His group organization, the Memorial
And his
Group.
son will be here too, Bryce.
That's right.
Bryce Tornay, who also served in the U.S. military.
So that's what's coming up here on the Burn Pit podcast. You know what you can expect when you listen to us.
Are you guys on Wednesdays or Mondays now?
We're probably going to go Mondays.
Okay.
Back to Mondays at 4 o'clock.
All right, that sounds good.
But that's a pre-recorded.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Good. All right, there you go. Guys, have a great damn day. Check out the Burn Pit podcast on all the platforms you consume. But go to Spreely.com, because if you don't, you're just a... Spreely's probably not going to like that, but it's free speech, bitches. Go help somebody today. If you can't help them, just don't hurt them. See ya.